Hello, Jye. Thank you for joining me today for this Fireside chat conversation. Very happy to have you with us. Before we go deep into the conversation, could you introduce yourself? Who are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you again, Andrew. So I'm Jye Lewis. I work in product and engineering at Propeller Aero, working on our 3D drone mapping platform.
Wow, that sounds awesome. So I think that's the great transition to talk about what is Propeller, what do you do at
Mhm.
Propeller, what is exactly your product and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Propeller is primarily a software product. We do have some Internet of Things devices out there as well, and we're used by large-scale construction jobs and earthworks companies to essentially send a drone up over these construction sites, take a myriad of photos and stitch that into a 3D model or a digital twin of that work site that can then be used for tracking progress, taking measurements, all of these things.
And who's the user, the usual user of Propeller? Who's your user, actually?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So many of these sort of large earthworks companies have a survey manager. They have people already that are really familiar with how ground is measured and how these projects are tracked. Um, these are the primary users, but really it's anybody involved with earthworks projects. Once all of this data is loaded into the platform, we want to build tools that sort of assist the workday of everybody involved in managing construction projects.
That's very cool. I went to your website and I checked like everything that you do, and I
Hmm.
really love like we're gonna talk about the product, the software, but can you tell me more about the I'm not sure about the name, the AirMate and the drones? Can you just give us
Yeah,
like more
yeah.
details about that? That's really cool.
Yeah, so we've got two IoT products that we've sort of designed and developed in house. One's the AeroPoint, which solves what sounds like a sort of boring problem, but from the engineering side, it's super
Hmm.
interesting. And that's when we sort of take these photos from the sky with a drone, we can align all of the photos together, but we don't know where they are sort of relative to the Earth. And the traditional way of solving this was a surveyor would go out with their like big GPS stick on a point, and they'd spray paint a big X on the ground. But it's really time consuming and a bit of an annoying task. So we've built they're just big foam pads with a checkerboard on them and a super high accurate GPS sitting in the center of them. So anybody can go out, throw this pad on the ground. It's pretty robust. It can sit there on a work site in the hot sun, in the rain, and it knows precisely where it is. So when the drone sort of sees it from the sky, um, we can then sort of cross-reference and say, where was that exact point?
Yeah.
Our other device, which personally I work with a lot more and really love, is the DirtMate, and that's an IoT device that attaches to the top of trucks on work sites. So
Hmm.
really any sort of trucks and excavators and all of these things, and it's just packed full of every sensor that we could put in it. Um, we can then use that to pull out metrics in much more real time than drone surveying. So if
Hmm.
we're surveying once a week, then there's 7 days where you don't have the newest data. However, for sites that are using DirtMate and have these sensors on their fleets of machines, we can provide information very real time, where the site was up to a couple of minutes ago, where the machines are, how much dirt they've moved, all of these things.
Wow. And if people go on your website, we can see a video where we see the volume calculation with
Mm-hmm.
the drones, and it's so cool to see. It looks like very futuristic, which it is, but it's very cool to see. And so I know you use Liveblocks because we
Mm-hmm.
talked about that, of course. But can you tell me more why you decided to use Liveblocks and how do you use Liveblocks?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started sort of designing, before we got to the engineering implementation phase, this new feature that we wanted to build, and it was internally a little bit of an experimental feature.
Hmm.
We talk to customers very regularly to try and work out what are some extra worksite construction problems we can solve. And a pattern that we saw coming up pretty often was using like physical printouts of these maps that we can produce as part of their planning process. So customers that would print out, the latest imagery that they've got from a drone flight,
Hmm.
put it down on the table and start circling and drawing and trying to communicate the plan of what needed to be done on a worksite. And we wanted to replicate that sort of within our platform as a digital and collaborative experience. And the first hurdle we hit with that before going to engineering was we don't really have much in the way of real-time or collaborative features in the current Propeller platform. And we started looking into, do we build a service ourselves, using WebSockets and all these things. There are a few host solutions we looked at, as in solutions that we would have to host ourselves. But we didn't really want to because it's a whole lot of work and it's a really difficult problem. And although sort of the engineering team there are different people with different levels of experience in synchronization in real time. As a whole, this was a very new problem to us. We found Liveblocks and it sort of, as a platform, solved many of the problems that we needed to solve. And that's why we at least sort of chose to use it for this feature.
Nice. And was it easy for you to implement Liveblocks as part of your architecture? I mean, actually, tell us more about like your overall architecture and how Liveblocks fit into that. And then I'll ask you, was it easy to implement? How hard it was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So our architecture, sort of on the back end, we're pretty microservice heavy of solving sort of different problems, trying to keep them all separated. On the front end, we have similarly micro front ends. However, the sort of core platform is a React monolith using WebGL for the rendering. That's probably the core architecture.
And when it came to the implementation of Liveblocks, how did you go? How long did it take for you to have Liveblocks up and running for your experiments?
Oh, 45 minutes, if that. So we actually, when we built this product, before we got to the live, interactive part, we actually built the drawing tool independently. As a new package, there's a lot of, outside of the collaborative, there was a lot of problems with 3D that we needed to solve. We're not just drawing on a flat canvas like many tools are, but we're drawing on a really bumpy map. Being able to bend those lines and shapes around the map was quite a fun technical problem. And as soon as we had this,
No, I was going to say when we first heard about Propeller, we shared what you did with all our engineers at Liveblocks, and they were all impressed by the fact that you can draw and then it render in 3D. It's really cool. Can you tell us more about that actually? I know you were going to, but...
Yeah, absolutely. So as the user draws, because we have, we're not just taking flat images and showing them, stitching them together like a sort of panorama, but we actually sort of find depth using the drone's camera. And so when we're looking at a work site, we can then rotate that camera down sort of into 3D space and see the terrain, which is really important for work sites to look at things like road gradings and piles of dirt and all of these things to make sure that we're at the appropriate level. But it means that the drawing solution needed to work within that 3D ecosystem. The way we ended up doing that was the drawing itself, as far as, storage, is still 2D. So we're recording, points and lines and polygons with 2D coordinates. But the rendering, when we actually display that on the user's computer, we'll look at, okay, we've got this, X, Y coordinate. What's the height of the ground at that point? And we bring the line down. So if we've got a line from one side of the site to the other, as we render it, it'll sort of follow the curvature of the site.
That is so cool.
Yeah,
very good job on that. Very excited. And in terms of Liveblocks again, so I know you're using the storage, Liveblocks storage to have a conflict-free experience. What else do you use? Do you use the presence?
We're not currently using the presence. We do intend to, because with the storage right now, we can have multiple people drawing on the map at the same time, but you don't know if anybody else is looking at the drawing, which is a critical part of this feature.
If it took you 45 minutes to do what you did, I think the presence will be in seconds.
Yeah, right. Just turn it on. and I think the reason it was so quick for us was, the feature and the 3D drawing was done independently, which that took weeks. That was quite a big project. Yeah. And when we wanted to drop it into the platform, we could single player, as we were calling it, draw on the map, and then it would disappear when you refreshed your page. To then actually get that persistent storage and the multiplayer, we sort of just went through those, the couple of React components that we we had written and swapped out all of our state with the Liveblocks SDK equivalent of, use room and all of these hooks. And that just worked really. As soon as we then drew and refresh the page, it would come back and pull the state back from those storage blocks and those rooms and did the thing.
Very cool. And I love in your story because like you're using Liveblocks for an experiment because you want to iterate on that. And I love the idea that it took you 45 minutes to implement Liveblocks so that you don't waste time on things like just to validate. And how is the experiment going, by the way? Is it like a success so far? Or?
Absolutely. So I think from a technical perspective, it's been extremely successful. The feature is, extremely, it's stable. From a product perspective, we're still trying to find the right people in a construction organization that want to use this. I think that the target audience we're expecting likes the way they're doing things, and that's okay. That's the reason that we run these things as experiments and we don't sink years into feature development. But it still is a beta feature.
Okay, that's very cool. Let me know how it goes, but I hope like the experiment will continue and be a success.
Absolutely.
And overall, when you think about the Liveblocks team, like I know you have seen channels with you and the Liveblocks team, but how was your experience working with the team so far?
Oh, it's been too easy. I know there's a Discord chat and all of these things. We've primarily communicated over email, which is just anytime we've had a question, it's just been an email and we get a response back pretty quickly. To be honest, there haven't been that many technical questions. I think the documentation is excellent. Most of the questions from our side have just been around, building and we're ready to go. What's next, sort of thing.
That was the dream answer, Jye. Documentation was so great that you didn't have to talk
Perfect.
to like that's the dream. I'll let people know in the team. They'll be happy about that. And I think that covers kind of everything I wanted to discuss with you. I don't think Propeller is a tool that anyone watching this video could go try and get value from it. But where should they go if they want to hear more about Propeller?
Yeah, so our website has information about all of our products and services, propelleraero.com. And if anybody's interested in some of the services we offer, there's lines out there and phone numbers and support lines and all of those things. And we've got many people sitting there love to chat about what we offer.
Awesome. And would there be anything else you'd like to add for the people listening to us today?
Yeah, I think just from a technical perspective, another super underrated and unexpected sort of victory from us with Liveblocks is not maintaining infrastructure. We do have quite a significant Kubernetes cluster and we have a whole infrastructure team. However, most of that infrastructure is REST APIs, which are, in my opinion, significantly easier to maintain and scale than sort of socket-based, WebSockets, TCP sockets-based services. And we have a few of these services, and they're just always frustrating and require a lot more brain power. So we've super appreciated not having to maintain that aspect of the application. We can just do the front end, which is pretty set and forget, and have the back end dealt with.
Well, that's why we built Liveblocks. So I'm very happy to hear that. Yeah. And we're happy that people like you can focus on what they can do best. That's really why we're doing all that. So exactly. Thank you very much, Jye. Thank you for your time. Very excited about the work you're doing on Propeller. It's amazing to see. I hope people will go watch demos of your product just to be inspired. And in the meantime, have a great day, Jye, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, Adrien. Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.